Before we start, hit that subscribe button. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Vietnam, 1971. Firebase Python. 6 artillery crew members found dead at their gun, all 6 facing the exact same direction. Not the direction they'd been firing, not the direction of enemy, not any tactical direction that made sense. Just northwest, all of them. Turned away from their weapon, turned away from their duties, turned towards something in the jungle, something that called them, something that made them stop fighting and start looking, something that held them until they died still looking, still facing, still locked on whatever was northwest. And over the next 48 hours, everyone at Firebase Python started turning northwest too, one by one, unable to stop, unable to resist, unable to do anything except face that direction and look and wait for whatever was there to finish calling, to finish pulling, to finish collecting everyone who acknowledged its presence by looking where it wanted them to look. You ever feel pulled towards something you can't see? Not curiosity, not interest. Pulled, compelled, unable to resist. Your body turning without permission. Your head rotating without choice. Your eyes focusing on a point you can't identify but can't ignore. And knowing if you look long enough, you'll see it. Whatever it is. Whatever wants to be seen. Whatever has been calling from that direction since before Firebase Python existed. Since before Americans came to Vietnam. Since before anyone knew directions could call. Could compel. Could kill by making you look. My name is Specialist Robert Martinez. I'm 78 years old. I live in New Mexico. I face northwest. Always. Can't help it. Can't resist it. Can't stop my body from orienting toward that direction. Been doing it for 53 years. Since Firebase Python. Since I saw what happens when you look where you're not supposed to look. When you face the direction that calls. When you acknowledge something that should stay unacknowledged. When you turn northwest and see what 6 dead artillery crew saw. What 47 soldiers saw before they died. What I saw and survived, but will never stop seeing. Never stop facing. Never stop acknowledging every second of every day until the day I die, still facing northwest. Still looking. Still being called. This was March 1971. Firebase Python. Small artillery base. Central Highlands. Near Cambodian border. Remote. Isolated. Dangerous territory. We had one 155mm howitzer. One 6-man crew. Supporting operations in the area. Providing fire support. Standard artillery mission. Boring work, safe work, relatively. You're not in the jungle, not on patrol, not exposed to ambush, just on firebase, behind wire, protected. Safe as anywhere in Vietnam could be safe, which wasn't very safe, but safer than alternative. The firebase was established 2 months earlier, January 1971. Standard defensive position, sandbags, wire, bunkers. Everything by the book, everything proper, everything designed to protect 48 soldiers from enemy attack, from mortars, from sappers, from Viet Cong, from North Vietnamese Army, from threats we understood, from dangers we could name, from death that made sense. Nobody designed defenses against directions, against being called by coordinates, against dying from facing wrong way, because those weren't threats, weren't dangers, weren't things that killed soldiers, weren't real, weren't possible, weren't in any manual or training or experience, just wrong, just impossible, just something that shouldn't exist but did, but was, but killed 6 men by making them face northwest until they died from facing. March 7th, 1971. Morning. The artillery crew didn't respond to radio call. Standard procedure required hourly check-in, confirmed operational status, confirmed readiness, confirmed crew was alive and functional and ready to fire if called. They didn't check in. Radio silent. No response to multiple calls. Lieutenant ordered me to check on them. Take 2 men. Verify status. Report back. Simple task. Easy mission. Just walk 50 meters to gun position and see what was wrong. See why they weren't responding. See if radio was broken or if crew was sleeping or if something had happened that explained silence. We found them at the gun. All 6. Staff Sergeant David Coleman, Corporal James Rodriguez, Corporal Michael Jang, Specialist Thomas White, Private First Class Robert Johnson, Private Kevin McCarthy. Good soldiers. Experienced crew. They'd been together 8 months, worked smoothly, knew their jobs, knew their weapon, knew how to fight, knew how to survive, knew how to stay alive in country where staying alive required constant vigilance. But they were dead. All 6. Sitting. Standing. Positioned around the gun. Not at firing positions, not ready for combat. Not prepared for anything. Just there. At the gun. In positions that made no sense. Positions that served no purpose. Positions that indicated they'd stopped doing their jobs and started doing something else. Something that required facing northwest. Something that required looking. Something that required dying while looking because looking was more important than living. More important than breathing. More important than anything except seeing what was northwest. What had called them. What had held them. What had killed them by making them face it. They were all facing northwest. Exactly northwest. Not approximately, not roughly. Exactly. Precise. Like they'd used compasses. Like they'd measured. Like the direction mattered. Like being exactly aligned was critical. Like looking at exactly the right angle toward exactly the right point was the whole purpose. Was the requirement. Was what they needed to do more than they needed to live. More than they needed to breathe. More than they needed to do anything except face northwest and look and die looking. Coleman was sitting, back against sandbag, legs extended, arms at sides, head turned left toward northwest, eyes open, staring, expression blank. Not scared, not surprised, not anything, just blank, just looking, just being dead while facing northwest, like facing was more important than being alive, like the direction mattered more than living, like whatever was northwest deserved attention even if attention meant death, meant not blinking, meant not breathing, meant dying from not breathing because breathing would mean moving, would mean breaking focus, would mean looking away, and looking away wasn't option, wasn't possible, wasn't permitted by whatever called from northwest. Rodriguez was standing, full standing position, feet shoulder width, arms hanging, head rotated 30 degrees left toward northwest, eyes open, mouth slightly open, like he'd been talking, like he'd been saying something. Like whatever was northwest required words, required acknowledgement, required verbal confirmation that he saw it, that he acknowledged it, that he accepted whatever call it was sending, whatever pull it was creating, whatever command it was giving that made talking important, made words necessary, made speaking final act before dying while facing northwest, before dying while looking, before dying while acknowledging. Jang was kneeling, one knee down, hands on thigh, head turned 45 degrees right toward northwest, eyes wide, very wide, like he'd seen something, like whatever was northwest had shown itself, had revealed itself, had become visible, and visibility required wide eyes, required maximum vision, required seeing as much as possible before dying from seeing, before dying from looking, before dying from acknowledging something that killed by being acknowledged, that killed by being seen, that killed by being faced. White was prone, lying flat. Not combat prone, not tactical position. Just lying down, like he'd collapsed, like he'd fallen, like whatever was northwest had overwhelmed him, had forced him down, had made standing impossible, made sitting impossible, made anything except lying flat and facing northwest impossible. He'd fallen facing, died facing, never stopped facing even while falling, even while collapsing, even while losing strength and consciousness and life. Just kept facing, kept looking, kept being oriented toward northwest because orientation mattered more than standing, more than functioning, more than living. Johnson was curled, fetal position, but head extended, neck strained, twisted awkward, toward northwest, like he'd tried protecting himself, like he'd tried hiding, like he'd pulled into defensive position but his head betrayed him, refused to hide, refused to look away, refused to break contact with whatever was northwest, kept looking, kept facing, kept being aligned even while his body tried escaping, tried protecting, tried surviving. His head wouldn't cooperate, wouldn't hide, wouldn't look anywhere except northwest. McCarthy was backward, sitting facing gun, but head rotated completely around. 180 degrees, twisted backward toward northwest. Impossible angle. Broken neck. He died from turning, died from rotating too far, died from refusing to move his body but moving his head, moving it until it broke, until vertebrae cracked, until spinal cord severed, until death came from rotating toward northwest, from facing what called, from looking where he was compelled to look regardless of physical limitations, regardless of anatomy, regardless of the fact human necks don't rotate 180 degrees, don't turn backward, don't break without external force. His neck broke itself, broke from internal force, broke from pull toward northwest that was stronger than bone, stronger than muscle, stronger than structural integrity of human spine. No signs of combat, no wounds, no trauma except McCarthy's broken neck, no evidence of attack, no evidence of violence, no evidence of anything that explained 6 dead soldiers, 6 men who died without fighting, without resisting, without doing anything except facing northwest, except looking, except acknowledging something that killed them by making them face it, by making them look at it, by making them die still looking because looking away wasn't possible, wasn't permitted, wasn't option once you'd started looking, once you'd acknowledged the call, once you'd faced northwest and seen what was there, what had always been there, what would always be there calling, pulling, killing by making you face it. I looked northwest. Don't know why. Couldn't help it. Something made me. Something pulled my head. Something rotated my neck. Something oriented my body without asking permission, without waiting for choice. Just moved me, turned me, aligned me, made me face northwest, made me look, made me see. And I saw it, for just a second, just a moment, just a flash. Something in the jungle. Not in the jungle, beyond the jungle, outside the jungle. In a direction that wasn't physical, wasn't spatial, wasn't geographic. Different direction. Outside direction. Direction that existed only when you faced northwest from Firebase Python. Direction that only existed at that specific bearing from that specific location. Direction that appeared when you looked. Direction that became real when acknowledged. Direction that called and pulled and killed when faced. It was vast, bigger than jungle, bigger than mountains, bigger than sky, big in way that hurt to perceive, big in way that brain couldn't process, big in way that made looking impossible but unavoidable, big in way that made you want to look away but couldn't, because once you'd started looking away wasn't permitted, wasn't possible, wasn't compatible with having seen, with having acknowledged, with having faced the vastness that existed northwest. It was watching. Not with eyes, not with anything physical, just watching, perceiving, being aware, knowing I was there, knowing I was looking, knowing I'd turned northwest and faced it and seen it and now belonged to it, now was marked by it, now was claimed by it, now would face northwest for rest of my life because facing was what you did when vastness saw you seeing it. When vast things beyond jungle acknowledged you acknowledging them. When the call was answered and the pull was accepted and the facing was begun. Then someone grabbed me, pulled me, physically turned me away. Specialist James Morrison. He'd been with me. Part of my two-man team checking artillery crew. He'd seen me starting to turn, starting to look, starting to face northwest. And he'd grabbed me, pulled me, oriented me different direction, saved me, maybe, partially, temporarily, because I'd still seen it, still acknowledged it, still faced it even if only for second, even if only for moment, even if only for flash. And flash was enough. Moment was enough. Second was enough to be marked, to be claimed, to be owned by whatever vast thing existed northwest of Firebase Python and called soldiers to face it and die facing it and stay dead while still facing it forever. This is where most people make their first mistake. This is where logic fails. Because logic says if something's dangerous, you avoid it. You look away. You run away. You protect yourself by not engaging. But the call from northwest didn't work that way. Wasn't avoided by not looking. Was triggered by being in position to look, by being at Firebase Python, by being northwest capable, by having the ability to face that direction from that location. And once you were northwest capable, the call started. The pull began. The facing happened whether you wanted it or not, whether you chose it or not, whether you resisted or not. We reported it. 6 dead artillery crew, all facing northwest. No signs of combat. No explanation for death. Medical examination would determine cause, but initial observation suggested they'd died from what? From facing, from looking, from acknowledging something northwest? You can't put that in report. Can't write, died from facing wrong direction. Can't document killed by looking at something that shouldn't exist. So we wrote, unknown cause pending autopsy. Wrote, unusual circumstances require investigation. Wrote things that sounded official without explaining impossible, without admitting supernatural, without accepting that directions could kill. But we knew. Morrison and I knew. We'd seen what 6 dead men had seen. We'd looked where they'd looked. We'd faced what they'd faced. We'd just looked shorter, just faced briefer, just acknowledged quicker before being pulled away, before being saved, before being protected from dying while facing. But we'd still looked, still seen, still faced. And facing meant marked, meant claimed, meant pulled toward northwest for however long we survived. However long before the call became irresistible, before the pull became overwhelming, before the facing became terminal, and we joined 6 artillery crew dying while looking northwest. The bodies were moved, brought to medical tent, examined. Cause of death, asphyxiation, all 6. They'd stopped breathing, just stopped, not from choking, not from strangulation, not from anything physical blocking airways, just stopped, forgot how, lost ability, had breathing overridden by facing, by looking, by acknowledging something northwest that required complete attention, required complete focus, required stopping all unnecessary functions like breathing, like blinking, like heartbeat, like everything except facing, except looking, except being aligned toward vast thing that called from direction that killed by being faced. March 8th. Next day. Morning. Private First Class Daniel Cooper was found facing northwest, alive, conscious, standing, looking, unable to turn away, unable to respond when called, unable to do anything except face, except look, except acknowledge. He'd been facing for unknown duration, maybe minutes, maybe hours, maybe since seeing 6 dead artillery crew yesterday, maybe since being exposed to knowing something northwest called. Something vast existed, something direction-based, killed by being faced. We tried turning him, physically rotating him. He resisted, fought, screamed. Like being turned away caused pain, caused suffering, caused agony worse than anything physical. Like facing northwest was relief, was comfort, was only position that didn't hurt, that didn't burn, that didn't tear at something inside that required alignment, required orientation, required facing exactly northwest or experience torture of being misaligned, of being wrong direction, of being disconnected from call that needed answering, from pull that needed accepting, from vastness that needed acknowledging. We left him facing, didn't know what else to do, left him standing, left him looking, left him oriented northwest while we decided what to do, how to help, how to stop whatever was happening, how to prevent more soldiers from facing, from looking, from dying while aligned toward direction that killed by being acknowledged. Cooper died 4 hours later, still standing, still facing, still looking northwest, stopped breathing, stopped blinking, stopped everything except facing, except being positioned, except being aligned. Died from alignment, died from positioning, died from facing direction that required death as payment for acknowledgement, as cost for looking, as price for seeing what vast thing existed northwest of Firebase Python. And we understood. Understood this wasn't isolated, wasn't just artillery crew, wasn't just Cooper. This was beginning. This was spreading. This was everyone at Firebase Python being called, being pulled, being oriented toward northwest whether they wanted or not, whether they'd looked or not, whether they'd acknowledged or not. Just being at Firebase meant being susceptible, meant being called, meant eventually facing northwest and dying while facing because facing was destiny for everyone at Firebase Python, for everyone northwest capable from this location, for everyone who could align with vast thing that existed in direction that killed. March 8th, afternoon. 3 more soldiers found facing northwest. Lance Corporal Stephen Adams, Private Michael Turner, Private Robert Wilson. All 3 standing, all 3 looking, all 3 unable to turn away, unable to stop facing, unable to do anything except acknowledge what called from northwest, what pulled from vast space beyond jungle, what commanded alignment from direction that existed only at Firebase Python, only at specific coordinates where northwest from here meant something, meant connection, meant acknowledgement, meant death. We tried evacuating, tried getting soldiers away from Firebase Python, away from location where northwest held meaning, away from coordinates where direction called and pulled and killed. But soldiers facing couldn't move, couldn't walk, couldn't be carried. Any attempt to move them caused screaming, caused pain, caused agony that stopped when they were returned to exact position, exact orientation, exact alignment toward northwest, They were locked, positioned, held by something that required them staying exactly where they were, exactly how they were aligned, exactly facing northwest or suffer pain that exceeded physical tolerance. Adams died at 1600, Turner at 1700, Wilson at 1800, 1 hour apart, sequential, like something was collecting them one at a time. Like vast thing northwest was methodical, was patient, was systematic in how it took soldiers who faced it, who acknowledged it, who looked at it long enough to be seen looking, long enough to be noticed, long enough to be claimed by being that existed in direction that existed only from Firebase Python, only from these coordinates, only when facing northwest from this specific point on Earth. By March 9th morning, 7 soldiers were dead from facing northwest. Another 12 were locked in facing position, unable to turn away, unable to stop looking, unable to do anything except stand and face and look and wait to die from facing, from looking, from acknowledging what vast thing northwest demanded acknowledgement from, what vast direction demanded facing toward, what vast space demanded soldiers orienting toward until orientation killed them, until alignment terminated them, until facing became final act before death from facing. The firebase was ordered evacuated. Immediate, full evacuation. Abandon position. Abandon equipment. Abandon everything except soldiers. Get everyone out. Get them away from Firebase Python. Away from coordinates where northwest meant death. Away from location where direction called and killed and collected soldiers who faced it. But evacuation failed. Soldiers locked in northwest facing couldn't be moved. Soldiers not yet facing couldn't leave those who were facing. Military doesn't leave wounded, doesn't abandon those unable to walk, doesn't extract some and leave others. Everyone leaves or no one leaves, and everyone couldn't leave because 12 soldiers were locked facing northwest, were positioned by vast thing beyond jungle, were held by direction that killed, were claimed by acknowledgement that required death as payment. Morrison suggested covering their eyes, blocking vision, preventing them from seeing what they were facing, preventing whatever northwest showed them from being seen. Maybe breaking connection by breaking sight, maybe releasing them by denying vision, maybe saving them by making them blind to vast thing that required seeing to maintain grip, to maintain pull, to maintain claim on soldiers who'd faced it. We tried. Covered Corporal Martinez's eyes, blindfolded him, blocked his vision completely. He screamed. Inhuman screaming. Screaming that didn't sound human. Didn't sound like it came from human throat. Didn't sound like it came from human vocal cords producing human sounds. Sounded like something else screaming through him. Something vast screaming through human form. Something that used his voice to express agony at having vision blocked, having connection interrupted, having facing denied by covering eyes that needed to see. That required seeing, that existed only to see what northwest contained, what vast space held, what direction demanded acknowledgement of. We removed blindfold. Screaming stopped. Martinez faced, looked, acknowledged, and died immediately. Like being forced not to look killed him faster than looking killed him. Like blind facing was worse than seeing facing. Like whatever northwest demanded seeing as part of dying, demanded witnessing as part of being collected, demanded eyes open and vision active and acknowledgement complete when death came from facing direction that killed by being faced. This is the moment everything changed. This is when understanding shifted. This is when we realized we weren't dealing with enemy, weren't dealing with weapon, weren't dealing with anything tactical or military or physical. We were dealing with something else, something that existed in direction, something that called from bearing, something that collected soldiers by making them face it, by making them look at it, by making them acknowledge it until acknowledgement became fatal, until facing became terminal, until looking became final act. March 9th, afternoon. Command decided to destroy Firebase Python. Artillery strike from different Firebase, pound position into crater, destroy location, destroy coordinates, destroy place where northwest meant something, where direction called, where vast thing beyond jungle collected soldiers by making them face it. If location ceased existing, maybe call would stop, maybe pull would end, maybe soldiers locked facing would be released, maybe those not yet facing would be protected. Maybe destruction of Firebase Python would disconnect whatever linked this location to vast thing northwest that demanded facing toward it. Evacuation resumed. Those not facing were extracted. Helicopters. Fast. Urgent. Get them out before they started facing, before they became locked, before they became unable to move, before they became next to die from facing northwest. 41 soldiers extracted, 41 saved, 41 who hadn't yet looked long enough, hadn't yet faced long enough, hadn't yet acknowledged long enough to be claimed, to be held, to be locked in position until death from positioning. 7 soldiers remained, 7 locked facing northwest, 7 unable to move, 7 waiting to die, 7 being collected by vast thing that called from direction. Morrison and I were last to leave, last helicopter, last chance to extract. We tried one more time to move the 7, tried pulling them, tried carrying them, tried forcing them. They screamed, they fought, they refused, not consciously, not willingly, but their bodies refused, their positioning refused, their orientation refused to change, refused to move, refused to face any direction except northwest, refused to acknowledge anything except vast thing that held them, that claimed them, that owned them through facing, through looking, through acknowledging. We left them. Had to. Helicopter leaving. Artillery strike incoming. Firebase Python being destroyed. 7 soldiers dying. Already dying. Already dead from facing even if their hearts still beat. Even if their lungs still breathed. Even if their eyes still saw. They were dead. Dead from the moment they faced. Dead from the moment they looked. Dead from the moment they acknowledged vast thing northwest that collected through facing, through alignment, through orientation toward direction that killed by being faced. The artillery strike hit Firebase Python 30 minutes after final evacuation. Destroyed everything. Destroyed position. Destroyed structures. Destroyed location. Destroyed coordinates where northwest meant death. Where direction called. Where vast thing collected soldiers who faced it. 7 soldiers died in strike. Died still facing northwest. Died still looking. Died still aligned. Died still oriented toward vast thing that had called them, that had pulled them, that had claimed them through making them face direction that existed only from Firebase Python, direction that ceased existing when Firebase Python ceased existing. But I still face it. 53 years later, I still orient northwest, still feel the pull, still feel the call, still feel vast thing beyond jungle pulling at me, calling to me, demanding I face it, demanding I look at it, demanding I acknowledge it. Every second, every moment, every instant of every day for 53 years, facing northwest, unable to face any other direction for long, unable to orient differently permanently, always pulled back, always rotated back, always aligned back toward northwest, toward direction that called from Firebase Python, toward vast thing that claimed me the second I looked, the moment I faced, the instant I acknowledged by orienting toward it. My house faces northwest. My chair faces northwest. My bed faces northwest. Everything I own is positioned to face northwest. Everything I am is oriented toward northwest. Everything I do requires facing that direction, looking that direction, acknowledging that direction. Because vast thing northwest doesn't release, doesn't let go, doesn't stop calling once you've answered, once you've faced, once you've acknowledged by looking where it wanted you to look, from where it wanted you to look, toward what it wanted you to see. Morrison died 20 years ago. Heart attack, found facing northwest. Even in death, still oriented, still positioned, still aligned, still facing direction that killed 46 soldiers at Firebase Python, still acknowledging vast thing beyond jungle, still being claimed by something that existed in direction that shouldn't exist, by something that called from bearing that shouldn't call, by something that collected through facing that shouldn't collect. I'm next. I know I'm next. I can feel it. The pull is stronger now. The call is louder now. The demand to face is irresistible now. I can't face other directions anymore. Can't turn away anymore. Can't break alignment anymore. Just face. Just look. Just acknowledge. Just wait for breathing to stop. Wait for heart to stop. Wait for life to stop while still facing northwest, while still looking, while still being oriented toward vast thing that claimed me 53 years ago when I looked from Firebase Python, when I faced from those coordinates, when I acknowledged from that position that northwest held something, something vast, something that collects soldiers who face it. Last week I couldn't turn my head, at all. Locked facing northwest, permanent alignment, permanent orientation, permanent positioning toward direction that kills. I tried turning, tried forcing movement, tried breaking lock, screamed from trying. Same screaming Martinez made when we blindfolded him. Same inhuman sound, same vast thing expressing agony through human voice. Same something else using my throat to scream at being denied facing, at being prevented from acknowledging, at being stopped from orienting toward northwest where vast thing waits, where vast thing calls, where vast thing collects everyone who faces it from positions where northwest means something, where direction connects, where bearing reaches vast space beyond jungle, beyond physical, beyond directions that should exist. Yesterday I stopped blinking. Eyes won't close, won't break contact with northwest, won't stop seeing toward that direction, won't interrupt acknowledgement by blinking, by blocking vision, by denying sight of something that requires being seen, that demands being acknowledged, that exists only when faced, only when looked at, only when oriented toward by soldiers at coordinates where northwest reaches it, where direction connects to it, where bearing aligns with it. My breathing is slowing. Heart is slowing. Everything is slowing except facing, except looking, except acknowledging. Those are constant. Those are permanent. Those are what remains when everything else stops. When life stops. When function stops. When being stops. Facing continues. Looking continues. Acknowledging continues. Forever. Always. Northwest. Toward vast thing beyond jungle. Toward vast space beyond physical. Toward vast direction beyond normal directions. Toward what called from Firebase Python. Toward what collected 46 soldiers by making them face it. Toward what will collect me by making me face it until facing is all I am. Until orientation is all I do. Until alignment is all I exist for. I'm writing this facing northwest, Can't face any other way. Can't write facing different direction. Can't exist not oriented toward that direction, toward that bearing, toward that alignment, toward vast thing that called, that pulled, that claimed, that owns through facing, that collects through orientation, that kills through alignment. If you're reading this, don't face northwest from Firebase Python coordinates. Don't look that direction from that location. Don't acknowledge what vast thing exists in direction that exists only from there. Don't start facing because facing doesn't stop, doesn't end, doesn't release, just continues, just persists, just lasts forever, forever facing, forever looking, forever acknowledging, forever dying from facing direction that kills by being faced. My hands are turning northwest now. My body is rotating northwest now. Everything is aligning northwest now. Final alignment, final orientation, final positioning, final facing before breathing stops, before heart stops, before life stops, before becoming another soldier collected by vast thing northwest, another person dying from facing, another being terminated by orientation, another existence ending from alignment toward direction that kills, that calls, that collects everyone who faces it from positions where northwest means something, where direction connects, where bearing reaches vast space that exists only when acknowledged, only when faced, only when looked at from coordinates where looking means death, where facing means collection, where orienting means belonging to vast thing northwest that never stops calling, never stops pulling, never stops collecting soldiers who face it. I'm facing now, only facing, just facing, pure facing, complete facing, final facing, northwest, always northwest, forever northwest, toward vast thing, toward vast space, toward vast direction, toward what called from Firebase Python, toward what collected 46 soldiers, toward what claims me now, toward